Welcome to Donington Park for the finale to the Caterham Motorsport season. Now we are guaranteed action galore as all the championships play out here. And where better to finish than this fantastic track in Leicestershire. First, let's take a look at the Caterham Academy. Now there are so many drivers in the Academy that they've actually been divided into two groups, which means that by the end of today, two champions will be crowned. So first, let's take a look at the green group. Let's catch up with David Addison for all the details.
A whole grid of racing novices take part in the Caterham Academy. There are so many, they're in two groups, and on pole position for the first green group race was Tom John. Pete Walters alongside him. As the lights went out, the field blasted away, and although they got round Redgate cleanly, you couldn't say the same up at McLean's, where Marcus Rawlinson went wide, and Matt Gray was very much involved. With damaged cars all over the scenery, the race, not surprisingly, had to be stopped. Now, the second time of asking, it was another good start by Pete Walters to lead the way. Less fortunate, though, was Kevin Taylor, who had a spin coming out of Roberts. On track, it was Spencer versus Stephen Tozer for the championship, as well as for second in the race, as Jennifer Mason headed into the gravel trap. That brought out the safety car, and with time running out, the checkered flag flew under safety car conditions. Pete Walters won the race, Stephen Tozer the title by 2 points.
I hate to, win the championship like that under the safety car and finishing, but and there was a little bit of contact with Pete, so we need to look at that and deem, that it's fair or not. But over the moon, yeah, really good. Amazing race, really enjoyable to be part of.
Stephen Tozer is the green group champion. Peter Spencer coming home 2 points behind him, and Tom John rounding out the top three ahead of Pete Walters and Marcus Rawlinson. The other half of the Caterham Academy, the white group, was headed by James Beardwell on pole position, Jay McCormack lining up alongside him. As the lights went out, it was a good start by McCormack from the outside of the front row. He led to Redgate. But not surprisingly, with such a full field, there was plenty of drama behind. Alex Heslett and Aman Uppel coming to grief at Roberts. That brought out the safety car. Everybody bunched up, and on the restart, it was Jay McCormack once again trying to break away, but championship leader Ben Gillius was right behind him. As the two squabbled, Gillius made a move for the inside at the old hairpin and went through into the race lead. There was drama behind, however, as Spencer Wright and Eric Tiv came to grief at McLean's. The lead battle became even bigger. 5 cars fighting for honours. McCormack back in front, but then Gillius asserted himself once more. He hit the front not only to win the race, but also to win the championship.
There was bits where we were 3 abreast, just an inch between us. It was unbelievable. Win or lose today, I just wanted to have a really good race, and that was definitely that.
Ben Gillius can celebrate a championship. He comes home ahead of Jay McCormack, with James Beardwell taking third. Philip Bianchi ends the season 4th ahead of Eric Tiv, and Anthony Taylor in 6th. And to round out the season, there was a chance for the white group and the green group to go head-to-head for the only time this year. The Autumn Trophy had Philip Bianchi on pole position, Tom John alongside him. The cars got round Redgate cleanly. They were less fortunate down at the old hairpin. A few went rally crossing, but others, such as Dale Cooper, ended up stuck fast in the gravel. 3 wide, they fought out of the chicane, side by side around Redgate. Philip Bianchi trying to get himself back into the lead. He ran wide over the curb and lost out, as through it all came Jay McCormack to score the race win, and he was delighted.
Right, time to step it up a gear now with last year's Academy graduates. Now, these guys have upgraded their cars to make them even faster, which guarantees one thing: even more sideways sliding. To bring us up to speed with the action, let's join David Addison for the conclusion of Roadsports.
The man on pole position for race 1 was Lee Collins. It was Guy Hawkins alongside him on the front of the grid. As the lights went out, it was a good start to lead the pack down towards the first corner by Hawkins. Others less fortunate, as Andy Lahal went through the gravel. Daniel Martin followed suit. Quintero was trying to work his way through to the front of the grid. Championship leader Ross Ollivant on his tail. There was drama coming down through the Craner curves, Daniel Martin being one of them, Sarah Porter the other. Off also, Samantha McPartland stuck fast in the gravel, and Andrew Perry got it wrong up at McLean's. There was more drama to come at Roberts as William Lloyd and John Curry got together. Lloyd's car being shovelled through the gravel trap. The next casualty was Greg Hyatt. He went off at McLean's and was stuck fast in the gravel. Then Guy Hawkins and Daniel Quintero battled for the race lead. They touched at Roberts. Round went Hawkins. Quintero came through to score the race win, but post-race he was disqualified for speeding under yellow flags. That meant that not only was he excluded from this race, he would have to start race 2 from the back of the grid. And although he crossed the timing line first, it was Rui Ferreira who ultimately inherited the race win. And that will have a major impact on Quintero's championship hopes. So we're ready here at Donington for race 2 of the weekend. Daniel Quintero will start this final Caterham Motorsport Championship race on the back row of the grid. He will start 21st. The man on pole position is Rui Ferreira. Guy Hawkins will be alongside him at the front of the grid. And Russ Ollivant, the championship leader, starting this race on row 3. And he's getting closer and closer to winning that crown. Weather conditions rather different for the second race. It is very blustery, it's a wet track, and we are ready to go racing. 20 minutes for the final Avon Tyres Caterham Roadsport Championship race of the season. Drivers now look towards the lighting gantry. The lights go red. And as soon as those lights blink out, we're racing for the last time this year on a slippery road. And Quintero, one of those who needs to get a good start from up near the back of the grid. He's on the move already, taking Daniel Martin with him as the leaders tiptoe their way down towards Redgate for the first time. It is going to be the yellow car of Rui Ferreira that leads the way as they work their way round Redgate. Ferreira, who's had 2 race wins already this year, but I don't think he's going to be able to outscore now and think about the championship. On board with, as they work their way down through the Craner curves, Daniel Quintero. He's working his way through the traffic, and you can see he's got to be oh so careful. It's a slippery road, and really there's only one line at the moment as the leader Ferreira gets all sideways, sliding his way through for second place Guy Hawkins, and they're all hunting for traction down at the bottom of the Craner curves. Headlights on as they pierce the gloom up now through Schwantz Curve for the first time onto McLean's, which has been the undoing of many of them this weekend. Into the right-hander. Ferreira then, winner at Brands Hatch, winner at Anglesey, leads the way, and a very, very crossed-up Guy Hawkins runs out of road. Straight through the middle of all of them, there goes Andrew Perry. He's up to second place as he slingshots his way through the traffic. To Coppice they come for the first time. So Perry making progress, and there is the recovering Hawkins. 55, the blue car, Russ Ollivant, sideways as he tries to get the power down, and all sliding his way onto the inside grass, John Curry. Cuzzer gets back onto the road, but more places lost. As what have we got now? 5 for the race lead. Down towards Roberts then for the first time. The leader just is Andrew Perry now from the 3rd row. Almost runs out of road and forces Guy Hawkins off through the gravel. Hawkins just didn't have enough room to turn in. Over the timing line, end of lap 1. Through they come. A replay of the start on board with Daniel Quintero. He blasts away up through the gears. There's not too much spray. There is a break in the cloud as well, suggesting the weather and therefore the track conditions are going to improve. He hugs the inside line all the way down to Redgate, picking off places where he can, but then he gets a bit stuck in the traffic and Dan Mason comes around the outside of him. Gap opens up on the inside. Quintero gains 2 more places. In a race like this, you're driving not just with thoughts about the opposition, but also with a calculator in your brain, trying to work out how you're doing relative to everybody else, and bearing in mind, you've got to drop 2 scores. One of the quirks of drop scores means that if you're not here or if you retire, you can count that 0, and sometimes it actually helps you because you're losing fewer points. We had one year in Caterham racing where every champion lost out because of drop scores, and it was won by somebody else. So sometimes it works against you, even if you've had a really good season. Meantime, Andrew Perry in 11 fights back on the inside there. Rob Watts on the outside, and he loses out as they work their way now down through Roberts. Bouncing over the curve in number 10 is David Bevan. The field accelerating its way across the timing line now. Russ Ollivant still the man to watch as he thinks about points. Comes over the timing line and he's running, 6th at the moment as they head down towards Redgate. The final round of the Avon Tyres Caterham Roadsport Championship, and it has been a dramatic race thus far on a very slippery track. Andrew Perry is back in the lead ahead of Rob Watts, and then 3rd is Guy Hawkins. The man that leads the championship, though, is a long way back relative to the leaders, Russ Oliver. He's on the fringes of the top 6, but there's quite a bit of daylight that's opened up between him and the opposition. He still, though, should be good to win the championship because his main opposition, Daniel Quintero, who was excluded from race 1 and has to count that 0, even though you can drop your worst 2 scores if it's an exclusion, you have to count the 0. He is struggling to make the same progress. Andrew Perry then fights for traction as he works his way now up through Coppice. And the battle is on for second place. Is really coming under pressure now is Rob Watts. Guy Hawkins right on his tail in the black and red car, moves to the outside line as they drop down now towards Roberts. Into the chicane, Hawkins goes through round the outside, but then loses out as he turns into the chicane because he's on the wrong outside slower line. Up towards the checkered flag, it is going to be a win for Andrew Perry. It is going to be his single win of the year. Checkered flag is waved and Perry scores the victory by just under a second. It's 0.9 of a second over Rob Watts. Guy Hawkins takes 3rd, Olivant is 6th, and Daniel Quintero is 10th, and that is going to be enough for Ross Olivant to win the championship. Russ Olivant will take the title at the end of a very dramatic season. Let's confirm the race result first of all. Andy Perry the winner from Rob Watts and Guy Hawkins. Rui Ferreira 4th from David Bevan. Russ Olivant 6th, enough for the championship ahead of Alan Cooper and then Simon Sharrock.
In the wet, it's treacherous. I locked up coming up to the chicane at one point. I was like, oh no, that's me in the gravel, but no, I kept it on the track. It's been a long time coming. After a great season last year, this year has just been a load of DNFs and poor performances by me. So right at the end of the season, I'm really chuffed.
Very chuffed too is Russ Olivant because he is the champion. 2nd at the end of the season, Daniel Quintero, with 3rd going the way of Guy Hawkins. Rob Watts finishing 4th ahead of Rui Ferreira, and Alan Cooper, the man who rounds out the top 6 as the champagne is sprayed here at Donington Park.
It's time to continue the Caterham Motorsport finale here at Donington Park. Now we've seen 3 champions crowned, and it's time now for a 4th as the track sports make their way onto the track. Let's join David Addison for race 1.
Coming to Donington, the championship headed by Anthony Barnes, Daniel Bremner behind him. Barnes elected to skip Donington, therefore he could count 2 0s, making sure that on drop scores he couldn't be beaten. It meant that 2nd place was up for grabs as race 1 got underway. Daniel Bremner from pole, battling with Steve McCulley. David Badger getting it wrong at turn 1. As Daniel Bremner led the way, his advantage was just ever so slightly increasing over Steve McCulley. But in drama further back in the pack was Simon Baker, who had a big spin into the gravel at Redgate. He wasn't the only one in strife. Kevin Cooper locking up and making contact with William Emkers. Matthew Reeve got involved and others suffered as well, and damaged cars littering the pit straight was the end result. At the checkered flag, it was a win for Daniel Bremner. Steve McCulley coming home just 0.467 of a second back, and Paul Aram rounding out the top 3. The final Avon Tyres Caterham Track Sport Championship race of the season. Anthony Barnes already crowned as the champion, and Steve McCulley is the man who lines up on pole position for this. Daniel Bremner, having withdrawn from the race, he has already secured 2nd in the championship, and so there's nothing really for him to race for today. It means then that McCulley and Paul Aram are on row 1, Donald Henshaw and Peter Reimer on row 2, and we have 30 minutes of racing about to get underway as the lights go red. Bit of creeping from 1 or 2 in the pack, but we're in business for the last time this year. Steve McCulley it is who leads the way. He's yet to win this season. Could this be the day for him? Paul Aram is the blue car and he noses ahead on the way down towards Redgate. Aram yet to score a win this year, so this is a very important race for pride as well as for that maiden win between the top 2, and you're on board with Joe Draper. Great shot this as he tries to work his way through the traffic round the outside at Hollywood. They come down towards the old hairpin. Aram leading the way. The field turning its way through that right-hander and then accelerating their way up now towards Schwantz Curve. Paul Aram, Steve McCulley, the top 2. And in a 30-minute race like this, you don't necessarily have to do all the work on the first lap of the race. You can bide your time a little bit, look after tyres and brakes and your own fitness, bearing in mind that 30 minutes is a long, long race, especially in this type of car where overtaking is so easy to do. And this, the long straight down towards Roberts, is one of those key overtaking areas. You get a good run through Coppice, get a tow, and then make your move at the end of the straight. On board with Draper, and he can see this great line of cars up the road ahead of him. Down they come, past the exhibition centre, into the braking zone, hard on the brakes, turn right, turn left and up over the timing line to end one lap of 30 minutes of racing. Steve McCulley it is who leads the way. The rest of the pack all queuing up behind him now. Wide goes Kevin Cooper in number 70, but he survives and runs his way now down towards Redgate. Aram fighting back on the inside line, trying to take the advantage again, and he does so. Paul Aram goes through and picks up the race lead now. Paul Aram, the man from Dalbeattie, leads the way. Steve McCulley tucked up behind him. The Hampshire driver then on the tail as they run downhill. Are they being able to shake off the pack behind? Not really. The rest of them staying with the top two, and in fact the gap closing up once more as they break for the old hairpin. It's Donald Henschel doing the pushing, looking number 19. The blue car tries to go around the outside. Henschel having his best showing of the season thus far. So you've got three drivers here all looking for their first win of the season. Kevin Cooper is wide and sideways and spins. Others go into the gravel in avoidance. And can Cooper get out of that? Yes, he can. So the yellow flags won't be out for too long, thankfully. Kevin Cooper having a pretty checkered weekend here. The replay shows that he had a little bit too much speed into McLean's, loses it. And those behind having to take very evasive action and going further through the gravel bed. Up front, it's Steve McCulley versus Donald Henschel for the race lead. And this great battle still here raging on. All of these drivers could be third by the end, but the top two about 20 seconds up the road, and Kevin Cooper is involved in yet more drama. This time it's at Roberts. And he's not on his own either, is he? Because Paul Mortimer, I fear, was the one that got involved with him. Kevin Cooper survives, goes over the timing line. This, the lead battle. Don Henschel then looking for a first win of the season. Steve McCulley second, looking for a first win of the season. Together they run through Coppice and Mortimer is off again. I think he's got broken suspension. Look at the front wheels, they're not quite doing the same thing, and that's a legacy of the incident with Cooper. And this is the replay of it, down towards Roberts. Mortimer only just ahead, Cooper brakes late, then spins and glances off the front and the back of Mortimer's car. Cooper survives. Mortimer gets to the end of the pit straight and it won't turn because the suspension is indeed tweaked, and off he goes through the gravel into retirement. The checkered flag is going to be made ready. Is it going to be Henschel or McCulley who scores victory in the last round of the track sport season? Down they come towards Roberts, through the right, through the left. Henschel is ahead, McCulley is all sideways, trying to keep up the power. They sprint their way up towards the timing line. Henschel is ahead when it counts. There's the flag, and it's a win for Don Henschel. And off the road has gone Joe Draper, almost within sight of the flag. That's coming out of Coppice. The car is muddy, the aero screen is muddy, and so's his visor. So who's going to be third? It's all of this lot. Richard Lambert just ahead of Peter Reimer, then Barry Moore, then Paul Aram, then Andy Ebden. Up towards the timing line they come. And Richard Lambert might be 20 seconds back from the leaders, but he hangs on to finish just in third place. Peter Reimer behind him, behind being 57 thousandths of a second, the margin third to fourth. Joe Draper was third at Coppice, but not for long. Turned in, too much speed, ran wide, over the very slippery, muddy, wet grass. Not only did he lose places by running wide, he then ended up losing places by sliding across the road, and on the grass on the inside had to back off and get everything back under control. There's the replay. Don't think there was contact, just a bit too much speed carried in. Drifts out wide over mud and grass and gravel and curb and everything. So Joe Draper finishes, albeit down in 8th place. For Don Henschel, though, it is a maiden win. Confirmation of the race results. Don Henschel, the race winner by half a second from Steve McCulley. Richard Lambert taking third ahead of Peter Reimer. Barry Moore 5th from Paul Aram, with Andy Ebden 7th. And after his moment, Joe Draper falls to 8th place.
It's been 3 years in the making. I'd like to thank Anthony Barnes, Alistair Calvert, all those who didn't turn up to make it possible. But the car was beautiful this weekend. Matt Blythe, the racing team, just had it set up perfectly. And what a way to get on the podium. I've never been on the podium. To be at the top, it's just the best way to get on the podium.
What a way to finish the season, top step.
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. Now I've got to try and replicate it next year, but that's the challenge. So just fabulous.
A fabulous year for Anthony Barnes. He was crowned champion before the races this weekend. Daniel Bremner, the runner-up, declared after race 1 at the end of an all-action season.
Well, what a weekend of motorsport we've enjoyed from here at Donington Park. The Caterham finale has been nothing short of brilliant. 4 champions crowned already. How do you top that? Well, there are 2 more champions still to be crowned. This weekend, Donington Park is playing host to the Caterham Motorsport Championship finale. Now, we've already seen several champions crowned, and now it's time to step it up with these little babies, the Supersports. Let's join David Addison for race 1.
Final races of the weekend in the ITC compliance Caterham Supersport Championship on track. William Smith has already won the championship and he's graduated to the R300s. It means that the battle is on for second between Jack Brown and Henry Heaton. Pole position for race 1 was Jack Brown's. Alongside him, Henry Heaton. When the lights went out, a good start was made by the yellow car of Chris Hutchison from the second row, but on the run down towards Redgate, Henry Heaton was the leader. Andre Sinclair with early troubles on pulling off, Lucy Redding taking a trip through the gravel. There was perhaps inevitably drama down at the old hairpin involving Rob Brown and Scott Harrison. Harrison able to rejoin as the leaders squabble their way around Redgate. Jack Brown had dropped a little bit back off the grid, but was working his way through to the front as Roberts claimed more victims, as it had done all weekend. At the end of the race, Ben Tuck took a second win of the season, with Jack Brown struggling in 5th, Henry Heaton being the runner-up. And all of that has set us up nicely coming into this last round of the championship. Pole position to Ben Tuck, Henry Heaton with him at the front of the grid, and Jack Brown starting this race 5th. A little bit frustrated with that. He's left himself with quite a bit of work to do. And also, in total contrast from yesterday, when the cars were the first race of the weekend, it is a very wet and slippery track on which they have to race this morning. It is a 30-minute race for the final round of the Caterham Supersport Championship. We're racing. Jack Brown 5th in the green car, slithers away. Who's going to make the best start? Ben Tuck, race 1 winner in the white car, tries to bag the advantage, but Henry Heaton comes up on the outside. You can see how wet it is, spray being kicked up into the air. And in a 30-minute race like this, I would suggest that for some of them, the first few corners, first few laps are about survival, not about heroics, as one runs way, way wide already. That is Andre Sinclair, out wide across the mud, back onto the circuit. And now he tiptoes his way down through the Craner curves. So, up front, Henry Heaton it is, leading the way. Jack Brown on a mission, though, to try to get himself up from 5th into contention. In Caterham Supersports, you drop your 2 lowest scores. So it's not just about what's going on the track. You've got to drive with this abacus in your brain as well. Up through Schwantz Curve they go for the first time. And so far, so good. We haven't had the expected drama, everybody being very respectful of the conditions, except, inevitably, for one. Off the road slides Mark Davis. He should be able to rejoin from there, down at the bottom of the old hairpin. Also off the road has gone in 67 there, look, Gavin Crawford. Spoke too soon about them respecting the conditions as the leaders tiptoe their way around Coppice. In 65, Tony Mingoya in the pale blue car. Off the road is Scott Harrison. He had a drama at the old hairpin in the first race. He's had a drama there in race 2 as well. The leaders, though, getting away. Jack Brown leads the pack. Henry Heaton is behind him, and a very sideways Ben Tuck arrives, rally style, desperately looking for traction. He eventually finds some and powers out of the chicane the other side through Roberts, but you can see just how difficult it is. It's not torrentially wet, but it's wet enough to make traction very limited indeed. Down they go towards Redgate, the gap down between the top 2, nose to tail, and the gap widening, 2nd to 3rd, as an understeering Tuck again looks for some grip. Onto the top of the Craner curves they go once again. Another huge field has been received this weekend for the last Supersport races of the year. 37 of them starting this last round of the championship, and you can see drivers wanting to push, but as they do so, suddenly losing out because the traction just is not there. And Ben Tuck once again struggling for grip, understeering his way downhill. He's being caught by Christian Charuta in the sort of pseudo-Brawn liveried car in 4th place. Scott Harrison trudges away from his parked car on the inside of Schwantz Curve, a little bit close to the edge of the road that. It may end up having to cause the race to be neutralised to get that out of the way. We'll see what the clerk of the course elects to do. Chris Hutchison in the yellow car also under attack as he slides his way through McLean's. And the driver's desperately hoping that weather conditions improve and that they can push on a little bit harder. For now, though, there's not much evidence of that happening. in number 20, Dan Gore, another man looking for an improvement in terms of track position, but he can't really push on until things dry out, and the safety car is indeed being deployed then. The reason is that parked car of Scott Harrison. This is a replay of Jack Brown's start. Makes a good getaway, except Chris Hutchinson makes an even better one. Comes up on the outside of him. Christian Charuta in number 2 about to get caught up in the traffic. Up the inside then, braking late and going ahead of Tim Dickens goes Brown. Henry Heaton led the way into Redgate. He leads coming out as well. And Ben Tuck drops back behind Jack Brown. So 5th to 2nd. A good first couple of corners for him through Redgate and Hollywood. And then towards the end of the lap, Henry Heaton slides out a little bit wide and Brown pounces up the inside and takes the place. Ben Tuck pushing on as he works his way now up round the right-hander of Coppice. 22 also starting to make progress is Mike Evans. William Smith, the man that's won the championship 9 times, a race winner. He's left the rest of them with precious few crumbs from the table, although Jack Brown has had 3 race wins. Henry Heaton has had 1, and Ben Tuck now 2 race wins. Mike Evans yet to score a victory this season, although he has been a race winner in the past in Caterham's, and down they come then now through Roberts. Jack Brown out front, and there through the gravel goes in number 13, Nick Stevens. He's going to be able, thanks to wet gravel compacting, to drive out the other side. And also off is Martin Pratt. So the Anvil Hire car slides its way off the road and back on again. Replay here on board with Henry Heaton down towards the old hairpin. And he runs out of road and just goes straight on, hooked a wheel onto the curb. That got rid of any traction for him, and he slides through the gravel, doesn't fight the car, guides it back towards the tarmac. You can see how the once spotless grass verges have been chewed up down at the old hairpin and the outside of Redgate, now looking a bit like a rally stage. Funny that, there's a rally here in a week's time. So you've got the pack in midfield squabbling on, amongst the number 20 Dan Gore trying to make progress. He does indeed work his way up the inside, and the next target for him is going to be Tim Dickens, who's also been competitive this year, but Dickens runs wide, leaves open the door. And number 4 there, Richard Nordhoff, the Dutchman, also trying to work his way through the field, putting a lap on Mark Davis, who we'd seen off the road very early on in the race. Up front though, Jack Brown looks as though he's going to be on target for a win, but then you've got to factor in where in all of this Henry Heaton is going to finish before we can really decide for sure who is going to be the runner-up in the championship. More drama at Coppice. Into the gravel goes Andre Sinclair. On this, the 15th lap of the race, the penultimate lap as well. Looking at the clock, Sinclair has run out of road. And there in strife as well is Martin Pratt, and he's come to grief on the inside of the track at McLean's corner. He's been off, he's got back on again. Teammate Jack Brown is bearing down on him, but that car is going nowhere, stuck fast, and now in reverse as he tries to get it out of the way. So Martin Pratt, thankfully, does roll off the road. That means that the circuit is sort of clear on the racing line, even if there'll be a yellow flag there to warn people that there is a parked car. But Jack Brown looks as though he's going to come through to score victory. It will be a 4th of the year, and that could well be significant, because with Henry Heaton 5th, some very crude maths would suggest that on drop scores they get a tie on points. The tie-break means the place goes to whoever has the more wins, and that's going to be Jack Brown. So for the runners-up spot, it's going to be very close indeed. But because of his results, his successes, his wins, Jack Brown should prevail. Up towards the timing line he comes. Checkered flag at the ready. It is a race win, and 2nd in the championship to Jack Brown, who comes across the line to win, with Ben Tuck 2nd and Christian Charuta taking 3rd. 4th is going to go the way of Mike Evans, and Henry Heaton is going to be 5th, but will just lose out at the very end of the season to Jack Brown in that battle to be the championship runner-up. Another very close race and another very close season for Caterham Supersports. Let's confirm the race result first of all. Jack Brown the winner from Ben Tuck. Christian Charuta 3rd with the fastest lap ahead of Mike Evans, Henry Heaton and Chris Hutchinson. Dan Gore 7th, and then Tony Mingoya.
It was a tough race. I managed just to get away at the beginning. I got jumped 4 places from where I was. The safety car came out, which was a bit of a hindrance. We managed to get away again, managed to pull a gap, and yeah, we have it. We got 2nd place in the championship and last win in this car. So
it was so close that you actually you needed the gaffer to give you the maths, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't have a clue what was going on.
How does that feel to conclude with second? Must be absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. I mean, yesterday qualified pole and ended up 5th, which was a bit of a letdown. I thought we was all going to slip away then, but somehow managed to pull it back today. Over the moon. Cracking race, good season.
Terrific way to finish the season, and I can see what it means to your team. They look like they're about to mob you.
Yeah, no, they will do later on.
All right, go and enjoy it.
Cool,
Thanks, man.
very much,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Cheers.
For Will Smith, it is a championship. Jack Brown, his runner-up, and Henry Heaton coming home third. Tied on points, those two, but in the end it went down to the number of wins. Christian Charuta fourth ahead of Max McDonough, and Ben Tuck taking sixth.
It's time for the quick ones now, the R300s. Now, Aaron Head has won the championship. He's got that sewn up, but behind him there is everything to race for. So, while they warm up for race 2, let's remind ourselves what happened in yesterday's action in race 1 with David Addison.
We've already had a champion crowned in the Bookertrack.com Caterham Superlight R300-S Championship, and that is Aaron Head. He mopped that up at Croft. Lee Wiggins looks like he's safe for second, ahead of Jack Sales, Stephen Nuttall fourth from Clive Richards, and then Phil Gladman coming into the final 2 races of the season. Pole position for race 1 went to Lee Wiggins, Aaron Head alongside him. Head has made a feature though this year out of poor starts and then great recoveries. Guess what happened in the penultimate round of the season? It was a poor start. It meant that Wiggins blasted away to lead down towards Redgate for the first time as Head tried to defend that second place from Stephen Nuttall. Come the end of the lap, Danny Winstanley got into the back of Nuttall and they just clipped Head as they wriggled their way through the chicane. Behind there was more drama at Roberts. This time Will Smith hit the curb and spun. Having won the Supersport Championship, he was stepping up to R300s for the first time. Next casualty was Jack Sales. He came to grief with Stephen Nuttall and also Dale Head on the run down towards Roberts. He glanced off the wall, but thankfully without too much damage. Danny Winstanley hit the front. He was leading with Aaron Head second and Paul Wilson in third until Head made a rare mistake and suffered his only non-finish of the season, ploughing off over the back of Winstanley into the gravel. Up front, Winstanley led the way. As getting a big squeeze was Chris Wright in the blue car. He was down at the chicane with 2 wheels on the grass as Paul Wilson bounced off Stephen Nuttall and spun himself to the back of the pack. At the checkered flag, it was a win for Danny Winstanley. Lee Wiggins taking second. Chris Wright coming home in third place. That leaves us with one more race to go in this year's Bookertrack.com Caterham Superlight R300-S Championship. Cars out on track, the race effectively already underway here at Donington. Now, we've had in a previous race a big oil slick left, not by planes at nearby East Midlands Airport, but by a Honda in a previous support race. And so the clerk of the course has decided that with so much oil on the pit straight, to let them run behind the safety car for 3 laps. The safety car should be in this time. The lights are out, you can see it now. And so Danny Winstanley leads in grid order the pack. Lee Wiggins is behind him, Chris Wright, and then you've got Anthony Barnes next up. Anthony Barnes having already been a champion this year. Over the line, we're racing for good, and the green flag waves then. So Danny Winstanley versus Lee Wiggins. The pack has become rather strung out, you've got to say, bearing in mind they've, in theory, all been bunched up behind the safety car, but Winstanley fends off Wiggins as they drop down towards Redgate Corner now. Side by side they run. Lee Wiggins, who has had a frustrating season, only 1 victory. Hugely experienced, though, but he's been denied by Aaron Head on so many occasions. Danny Winstanley won both Alton Park races and he leads at Donington. Down the hill they come then, Winstanley having taken 3 victories, if you add in the 2 from Alton and indeed the 1 victory that he's had from this weekend. Makes you wish he'd done a full season because he's always been very quick, whether it's been in TVRs previously or then into Caterhams. The pack working its way up towards the right-hander of McLean's, nose to tail those race leaders. And now Danny Winstanley trying to break the toe, trying to fend off Lee Wiggins. You can see that the damp patches of the circuit are there offline though now. Weather conditions improving. It was really wet and horrible at the start of the day. But now these fastest cars in Caterham Motorsport's ladder of motorsport have a virtually bone-dry track. It's still a little bit treacherous if you go near the grass. And Lee Wiggins goes to the outside line and locks up coming into Roberts. Is he going to be able to hang on to the race lead? Almost. He's on the inside line for the second element of the chicane, but Winstanley it is who will power his way through. Stephen Nuttall, previous champion in Caterham's, out and back onto the grass and back onto the tarmac. Leaders go over the line and down towards Redgate. Now keep an eye to number 40, Anthony Barnes, having won this year's Tracksport Championship, hunting his way now with more experience, lap by lap of an R300, to try to close on the 2 race leaders. Through Hollywood they go, downhill once again. Clive Richards runs fourth, another hugely experienced driver. Richards, surprisingly, has not been a race winner this year. Could he get on the podium here? Replay of Wiggins, big lock-up, takes his foot off the brakes, scrabbles round the outside, but ran out of road, had to lift, and therefore Winstanley secures the race lead. And that's how Stephen Nuttall ended up on the grass. He was given a bit of a squeeze as well. James Ashworth is a lap down, running second on the road, ignore him. But Head is chipping away at Lee Wiggins' advantage bit by bit. He's creeping back into contention. They're going to have to negotiate the back marker this time, coming down towards Roberts. There you can see Clive Richards making his way up the inside of Paul Wilson. And through as well goes, in 77 there, Chris Wright. Now, the back marker, James Ashworth. Will he be negotiated on the run towards Redgate? Let's see. Yes, he keeps out of the way. Head goes through, Nuttall goes through, Winstanley goes through. Clock ticking on down towards the end of 30 minutes. Head finds the oil, finds the water, goes wide. Nuttall is through, Winstanley is through. Second to fourth in one fell swoop, I'm afraid. A tiny error by Aaron Head, and it's just enough to lose him those 2 places. But he's on the fight back straight away, isn't he, as they come down towards the old hairpin. Stephen Nuttall up to second, trying to get away as Winstanley defends now for all he is worth. Right on his tail is Aaron Head as they work their way through the left at Schwantz curve now. Turn right at McLean's. Head to the outside line. Is he going to be able to go through? Not there, he's not. Winstanley hangs on to the place. They're making their way now up towards Coppice. Stephen Nuttall's black car, Danny Winstanley tucked up behind him, and Aaron Head gets the inside line, works his way now around the corner and goes third, coming out of Coppice. There is Lee Wiggins with this monster advantage over everybody else. Head for second, round the outside at the chicane, and he goes through, coming into Roberts. Right and then left. Now, if he doesn't make a mistake, can he drive away from the opposition? Can he do anything at all about Wiggins? I don't think he can. Looking at this, it just looks like it's too tall an order. This is how he lost second place a lap ago. Hooked a wheel onto the water, coming down towards Redgate, slithered out wide, got it all back under control, but lost those 2 places. Head then, out of the chicane, still pushing, taking Nuttall with him. Paul Wilson goes through in the green car. And Danny Winstanley looking for the wetter part of the road there to try and keep the tyres cool as he comes over the line. Clive Richards also encounters all the water and slides off the road. A mistake from the tree surgeon puts him into the gravel down at Redgate. He's a long, long way off the road. Marshall's encouraging him back towards the tarmac. There is Lee Wiggins, the race leader. And he's virtually home and dry now. He has got this colossal gap over Aaron Head. He has been able to make a break, and a huge advantage it is, and that's something you very rarely see in Caterham racing. Richards doing what Head did. Goes into Redgate, gets onto that partly water, partly oil mixture, and that just costs him all the traction, slides out wide. Lee Wiggins has got a problem because look, Aaron Head is right with him at the end. Nose to tail they run. What's up with Wiggins? Can Head get ahead of him on the line? Checkered flag at the ready. Lee Wiggins just hangs on to win by 0.3 of a second. But what on earth happened to Lee Wiggins right at the end, because the gap just disappeared. Chris Wright comes through ahead of Dale Head. This is going to be the battle for 6th place as they work their way up towards the line, right from Head from Paul Wilson. But drama all the way. Lee Wiggins just takes a race win. Aaron Head second, then Stephen Nuttall ahead of Jack Sales and Danny Winstanley. Chris Wright 6th ahead of Dale Head, and Paul Wilson in 8th. So Lee Wiggins it is who just hangs on to a race win, but by the narrowest of margins.
Good race, knew I had to get away. Aaron and a few guys were at the back, so in was doing my predictive every lap and just making sure I was going quicker and quicker and quicker. But then about 10 minutes from the end I saw Aaron's pit pulled P2 and went, oh no, and then you see the pink roll cage. And 2 of my guys in my team, I was going around to lap them, and they held me up. They meant to hold him up. So it was, pretty much in control. Went a little bit wide on the last corner, but very happy. Good end to the season.
But a great season for Aaron Head. He's the champion ahead of Lee Wiggins. Jack Sales third at the end of the year ahead of Stephen Nuttall and Clive Richards, with Danny Winstanley coming home in 6th. 7th, Stephen Collins, and Chris Wright rounding up 8th at the end of a great season for the R300s.
Right, Dave, back to me please, mate.
Well, what a fitting end to a remarkable season for the Caterhams. Congratulations, of course, to Aaron Head and all the other champions that we've witnessed across this weekend. It's been quite the season, hasn't it? So what happens next? Well, simple. They pack up and get ready to do it all again next year.